The first thing you should know about alien diplomacy is that it never goes according to plan. I learned this the hard way when what should have been a routine first contact mission turned into the most bizarre day of my life. My name is Alex Chin, and until 6 months ago, I was just another lieutenant on the United Earth exploration vessel Horizon. Well, now I'm technically married to the ruler of the most powerful civilization in the Andromeda Galaxy. Let me back up a bit that we'd spent 3 years searching for intelligent life beyond our solar system. 3 long years of empty planets, abandoned ruins, and false signals. The crew was getting restless. Some even suggested we pack up and head home. Then we received the transmission, a perfectly modulated series of mathematical sequences that could only be artificial. We traced it to a planet in the habitable zone of a binary star system, a world of vast purple oceans and floating cities that seemed to defy gravity itself. The inhabitants called themselves the Zalthori, a species that had mastered interstellar travel centuries before humans had even invented the wheel. Captain Rivera selected me to join the first contact team because of my background in xenolinguistics. "Keep it simple, Chin," she said during the briefing. "Observe their customs, establish basic communication, and for the love of all that's holy, don't cause an interplanetary incident." If only she knew, the Zalthori welcomed us with elaborate ceremonies. Their bodies were covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors with their emotions. Excitement showed as flashes of gold and orange. Their leader, whom they referred to as the Sovereign Queen Zaravesh, seemed particularly interested in me. She kept glancing in my direction with 6 pupilless eyes that somehow still managed to convey curiosity. Things were going smoothly until day 3 of the diplomatic mission. We'd established rudimentary communication through a translation algorithm and learned about their social structure, a matriarchal society where leadership was determined not by birthright but by something they called soul resonance. That morning, a royal attendant approached me. The translator on my wrist struggled to keep up as the alien spoke rapidly, gesturing toward a massive crystalline structure at the center of their floating city. "Honored human," the device finally translated. "The Sovereign Queen requests your presence for the ritual of aqueous harmony." My crewmates exchanged nervous glances. Dr. Patel, our xenobiologist, whispered, "Whatever it is, don't refuse. It could be seen as an insult." So I followed the attendant through corridors of living metal that pulsed with bioluminescent light. We arrived at a chamber where pools of what looked like liquid starlight bubbled and swirled. The queen was already there, her royal scales shifting between deep purple and electric blue. "Our people believe that true understanding can only be achieved when minds connect in the sacred waters," explained the attendant. "The queen has chosen you for this great honor." Before I could process what was happening, more attendants appeared with ceremonial robes made from a flowing material that felt like silk but rippled like water. The queen spoke directly to me, her voice a melodic hum that the translator rendered as, "Your species interests me, human. I wish to know if your kind is worthy of alliance with the Zalthori Dominion." I thought about Captain Rivera's words. Don't cause an interplanetary incident. So I did what any good diplomat would do. I agreed to the ritual. I didn't realize that meant sharing a bath with Her Majesty. The sacred pool was filled with a phosphorescent liquid that tingled against my skin. As we submerged, something extraordinary happened. My mind expanded. I could suddenly sense the Queen's thoughts, not as words but as impressions and emotions. Her curiosity, her ancient wisdom, her loneliness at the top of a civilization spanning dozens of worlds. And she could sense mine too, my wonder at the universe, my hopes for humanity's future, my determination to prove that humans could be worthy partners in the cosmic community. What I didn't know was that this mental connection, this soul resonance, was exceedingly rare between different species. I also didn't know that in Zalthori culture, such a connection was considered the ultimate confirmation of compatibility. When we emerged from the pool, the attendants gasped. The Queen's scales had turned a brilliant white, a color I later learned was reserved for moments of profound revelation. She turned to her people and announced something that made the entire chamber fall silent. The translator on my wrist struggled for a moment, then spat out. "The human's soul sings in harmony with mine. The prophecy is fulfilled. Prepare the bonding ceremony." "Bonding ceremony?" I asked, water still dripping from my ceremonial robe. What exactly does that mean? The Queen's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. In your terms, Lieutenant Chin, the translator crackled, I believe you would call it a wedding. And that's how I found myself standing before an alien congregation about to become royalty of a civilization I barely understood, all because I didn't want to cause an interplanetary incident if Captain Rivera could see me now. But that's a story for another time that I stood there, dripping wet and speechless, as the Queen's announcement sent ripples of excitement through the chamber. The Zelthori attendants burst into what I could only describe as singing, a haunting, multi-toned harmony that made the crystalline walls resonate. There must be some mistake, I stammered. I'm just a lieutenant. I'm not qualified to marry anyone, let alone the ruler of an interstellar civilization. The royal translator, a smaller Zelthori with scales that shifted between shades of green, tilted their elongated head. Qualifications are irrelevant. The sacred waters do not lie. Your souls resonate, a phenomenon not witnessed with an off-worlder in 7 generations. Before I could protest further, my comm unit buzzed. Captain Rivera's voice came through, tight with concern. Chen? The Zelthori are broadcasting some kind of announcement throughout their city. Something about a human and their queen. Please tell me that's not about you. I winced. Ma'am, we may have a situation. The translation might be off, but I think I'm engaged to Queen Zaravesh. The silence that followed was more terrifying than any dressing down I'd ever received. Finally, the captain spoke, each word measured carefully. Return to the ship. Immediately. But as I moved to leave, 12 royal guards formed a perimeter around me, their scales flashing warning reds. The translator approached. Apologies, but the chosen one cannot leave until the bonding ceremony is complete. It is our most sacred tradition. That's when Dr. Patel's voice joined the conversation. Captain, I've been studying their historical texts. This soul resonance thing? It's central to their entire culture. Refusing it would be like rejecting their deepest religious belief. Are you Suggs? Ting Lieutenant Chin should just go along with an alien marriage? The captain demanded. I'm suggesting that refusing might undo all our diplomatic progress and potentially put our crew in danger, Patel replied. Their technology is centuries beyond ours, remember? I looked at Queen Zaravesh, who was watching me with all 6 eyes. Despite the alliness of her features, I could somehow read concern there. The mental connection from the ritual bath hadn't completely faded. I could sense her confusion at my hesitation. What exactly does this bonding ceremony entail? I asked the translator. The Zelthori's scales rippled with what might have been relief. The joining of houses, the sharing of knowledge, and the ceremonial exchange of life essences. Life essences? I echoed, suddenly nervous. Nothing invasive, the translator clarified quickly. A simple exchange of biological data through another ritual immersion. The Queen will gain understanding of human physiology, and you will receive certain enhancements. Enhancements? This was getting more complicated by the second. Improved cellular regeneration. Extended lifespan. Access to the collective knowledge of the sovereign's bloodline. Standard benefits for a royal consort. My head was spinning. Extended lifespan? Collective knowledge? Part of me, the scientist part that had joined Earth's exploration program in the first place, was fascinated. Another part was terrified. Captain, I said into my comm, I think I need to go through with this. At least the first parts. We can figure out an exit strategy later if needed, but right now, refusing could jeopardize everything. I heard the captain sigh. This is against all protocols, Chin. But, proceed with caution. We'll be monitoring your vitals through your wristband. First sign of trouble, we're extracting you, diplomatic incident be damned. The next 12 hours were a blur of preparations. I was taken to a chamber carved from what appeared to be a single massive gemstone. Attendants dressed me in ceremonial garments that seemed to be made of living material, cloth that adjusted to my body temperature and shifted colors to match my emotional state, mostly displaying anxious amber and confused teal. Through it all, I kept thinking about that moment in the ritual bath, the connection I'd felt with the Queen. There had been something genuine there, something profound that transcended our biological differences. I'd sensed no malice, no deception, only curiosity and a deep, ancient loneliness. As night fell on the alien world, the queen herself came to visit me in my chamber. Without her royal entourage, she seemed smaller somehow, though still imposing with her iridescent scales and graceful movements. The translator device on my wrist struggled to keep up as she spoke. Your people are concerned. They fear for your safety. Wouldn't yours be, in their position? I asked. Her scales rippled with what I was beginning to recognize as amusement. My people would consider it the highest honor to be chosen. But I understand your hesitation. Our species are different. Very different, I agreed. On Earth, we usually get to know someone before marriage. No. She tilted her head. But I have known you, Alex Chin. I have felt the essence of your being. Your determination. Your curiosity. Your deep loyalty to your people. These are qualities the Zalthori prize above all others. I felt my face warming. There's more to me than just those qualities. As there is to me, she replied. The bonding ceremony will allow us to truly understand one another. After that, if you wish to return to your people, you may do so. I blinked in surprise. I can leave? But your translator said, my people believe the ceremony is irreversible. I am their queen. I know better. Her scales shifted to a deep, midnight blue. I do not desire an unwilling partner, no matter what the sacred waters revealed. For the first time since this mess began, I felt myself relaxing slightly. So this whole thing could just be symbolic? A way to establish relations between our species. The queen's 6 eyes blinked in that sequential pattern that I found so alien yet strangely expressive. Could be. Or it could be more. That choice will be yours to make, Lieutenant Alex Chin. She glided toward the door, then paused. Rest now. Tomorrow's ceremony will test us both in ways neither of our species fully understands. As she left, I couldn't help but wonder, what wasn't she telling me about this bonding ceremony? And why did the most powerful being in this star system seem almost nervous? I barely slept that night. How could I? Tomorrow I'd be participating in an alien marriage ceremony that might permanently alter my biology. Captain Rivera had sent 3 increasingly concerned messages, each one more desperate than the last. The final one simply read, Chin, we've prepared an extraction team. Just say the word. But I didn't say the word. Something held me back, curiosity, maybe, or that lingering connection I'd felt with the queen in the ritual bath. There was something she wasn't telling me, and I needed to know what it was before I made any decisions that might affect relations between our species forever. Dawn broke on the alien world with a spectacular display as both suns rose simultaneously, bathing the crystalline city in prismatic light. My chamber door opened to reveal a procession of Zalthori attendants, their scales polished to an almost blinding shine. It is time, the translator announced. The mating of souls awaits. I nearly choked. The what now? I thought this was a bonding ceremony. The translator's scales flickered with what might have been embarrassment. Apologies. Translation difficulties. The ceremony has many names in our language, each describing a different aspect of the union. Great. Just great. They escorted me through the floating city to a massive amphitheater overlooking the purple ocean. Thousands of Zalthori had gathered, their collective scale colors creating a rippling sea of excitement. At the center stood a platform with what appeared to be another ritual pool, larger and more elaborate than the first. Beside it waited Queen Zaravesh, adorned in ceremonial armor that caught the light of both suns. My comm unit buzzed insistently. Chin, came Dr. Patel's urgent voice. Our scans are picking up massive energy buildups around the city. Whatever this ceremony is, it's not just symbolic. The technology they're employing is off the charts. I felt a flutter of panic. What kind of technology? Unknown, but it's interfacing with the planet's magnetic field somehow. Be careful. As I approached the platform, a hush fell over the crowd. I could feel the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon me. The queen extended a limb in greeting, her scales shifting to a welcoming gold. You came, she said, her voice translated through my wristband. I was uncertain. So was I admitted. I still am. There's something you're not telling me about this ceremony. Her scales darkened slightly. There is much about our ways that is difficult to translate. But know this, what tea happens today will change both our peoples forever. That didn't exactly reassure me. The ceremony began with a series of chants, the multi-tone Zalthori voices creating harmonics that seemed to vibrate through my very bones. Attendants circled us, carrying crystalline objects that hummed with power. The pool between us began to glow with increasing intensity. What exactly will happen when we enter that pool? I asked quietly. A joining, she replied. More complete than before. That's not very specific. Her 6 eyes blinked in sequence. The waters will bind our genetic codes, allowing for adaptation and compatibility. A chill ran through me. Genetic modification? That wasn't mentioned before. Not modification. Evolution. Acceleration of potential. She hesitated. There's more. The ceremony will also link our civilizations through ancient technology. A quantum entanglement at the planetary scale. My eyes widened. You're talking about some kind of forced alliance? An unbreakable one, she confirmed. My advisors insisted upon it. They fear your species otherwise. Suddenly, the Queen's nervousness made sense. This wasn't just about some alien marriage tradition. This was high-stakes diplomacy disguised as ritual. The Zalthori were ensuring humanity couldn't become a threat by binding our fates together at a fundamental level. My unit crackled. Chen, we're detecting energy patterns consistent with quantum manipulation, Captain Rivera said urgently. Whatever's happening down there could affect Earth itself. We need to abort. The ceremony was reaching its crescendo. The liquid in the pool now swirled in impossible patterns, defying gravity as it formed complex three-dimensional structures in the air between us. It is time, announced a high-ranking Zalthori, their scales shifting between ceremonial patterns of blue and silver. The Chosen One and the Sovereign Queen must enter the evolutionary waters. Queen Zaravesh looked at me, and for the first time, I sensed genuine uncertainty from her. Once begun, it cannot be undone, she said quietly. You must be certain. My head was spinning. On one hand, this could secure humanity's place among the stars, guaranteeing protection from a vastly superior civilization. On the other hand, I was effectively gambling Earth's autonomy on a ritual I barely understood. Chen, we're moving in, Captain Rivera's voice came through. This has gone far enough. In the distance, I heard the unmistakable whine of our shuttle's engines. The extraction team was coming. The Zalthori guards tensed, their scales flashing warning colors. Your people approach, the Queen observed. They fear for you. For themselves. Can you blame them? You're asking me to make a decision that affects my entire species. Her scales rippled thoughtfully. Perhaps it was presumptuous to place such a burden on one human. But the waters chose you, Alex Chin. Not just any human. Why me? I asked, the question that had been burning in my mind since this all began. The Queen's scales shifted to a deep, midnight blue I hadn't seen before. Because you alone among your kind carry the genetic marker we have searched for across 12 galaxies. A marker that appears in our prophecies from 10,000 years ago. My blood ran cold. What prophecies? Behind us, the ritual pool pulsed with increasing power. Above, our shuttle broke through the clouds, descending rapidly toward the amphitheater. Around us, Zalthori guards moved into defensive positions. The Queen's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but my translator picked it up clearly. The prophecy of extinction and rebirth. The joining of two evolutionary paths to survive what comes from beyond the dark space. What comes from beyond? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. They have consumed 17 civilizations already. They will reach your world in less than one of your Earth years. They will reach mine shortly after. Her scales had gone almost black with fear. Without this joining, both our species will perish. The shuttle was now hovering directly above the amphitheater, causing a wind that whipped around us. I could see the extraction team preparing to drop down. The Zelthori guards raised what looked like weapons. "Wait!" I shouted, raising my hands to both sides. "Nobody move." I turned back to the Queen. "You're saying this ceremony isn't just about marriage or alliance. It's about survival?" "Yes," she said simply. "The Ancient Ones left us this technology, the means to accelerate evolution through genetic symbiosis, to create a hybrid species capable of resisting the Void Eaters. But it requires compatible genetic codes from two different evolutionary paths. We have searched for centuries for the right match. The pool between us had become a swirling vortex of energy, its light now pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I could feel it calling to me somehow, resonating with something deep in my DNA. "Chen, get out of there now." Captain Rivera ordered through my comm. "That's a direct order." The Queen extended her hand toward me, scales shimmering with a mix of hope and fear. "The choice is yours, Alex Chen. But know that it is not just your fate that hangs in the balance, nor even mine. It is the fate of all who live in this part of the galaxy." Behind me, I heard the extraction team landing. In front of me, the Queen waited, her 6 eyes fixed on mine. Around us, the energy built to a crescendo, the very air crackling with potential that I had seconds to decide. The fate of 2 civilizations, perhaps many more, resting on my shoulders. And that's when I realized why the ritual bath had connected us so deeply. Why, out of all humans, I had been chosen by their sacred waters. The truth was both simpler and more terrifying than anything I could have imagined. That truth hit me like a physical blow. My grandfather's stories about his work at a classified research facility. The strange medical tests I'd undergone as a child that no one would explain. The recurring dreams of stars that spoke to me in voices I couldn't understand but somehow comprehended. "I'm not entirely human, am I?" I asked, my voice barely audible above the humming energy surrounding us. The Queen's scales rippled with confirmation. "The genetic marker you carry is not naturally occurring in your species. It was introduced by my ancestors 3 generations ago." My mind reeled. "You've been manipulating human genetics? For how long?" "Not manipulating. Preparing. And not just humans. 17 species across 12 galaxies. You are the only one who survived with the marker intact." The extraction team was now just meters away, weapons drawn. Captain Rivera herself had come down, her face a mask of determination. "Step away from the alien, Lieutenant," she ordered. "That's a direct command." "Captain, wait. There's something you need to know." A sudden tremor cut me off, rocking the entire floating city. The Zelthori attendants chittered in alarm, their scales flashing warning colors. "They cannot be here already," the Queen said, genuine fear in her voice. "It's too soon." "What's too soon? What's happening?" I demand. Another tremor, stronger this time. Far below, the purple ocean began to churn unnaturally. The sky darkened as if a storm were gathering, but there wasn't a cloud in sight. Dr. Patel's voice came urgently through my comm. "Captain, I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies. Something's distorting space-time around the planet." The Queen turned to her advisors, rapid clicks and whistles exchanging in their native tongue. Whatever they said caused her scales to pale to an ashy gray. "Alex Chen," she said, using my full name for the first time, "we have no more time for hesitation. The Void Eaters have found us. The prophecy spoke true, they sense the potential of our joining and seek to prevent it." The crowd of Zelthori began to panic, some fleeing the amphitheater while others dropped to what passed for knees, offering prayers to ancient gods. "What exactly are these Void Eaters?" Captain Rivera demanded, momentarily forgetting her extraction mission in the face of this new threat. The Queen's translator struggled to find the words. "They exist between neither matter nor energy as you understand it. They consume consciousness itself, leaving only empty shells behind." As if summoned by her description, the sky split open. Not like a crack. More like reality itself was being peeled back, revealing something that hurt to look at directly. A darkness that wasn't just absence of light but absence of everything. Get to the shuttle. Rivera ordered her team. We're evacuating. Chin, that includes you. I looked at the rift spreading across the sky, then at the churning ritual pool, then at the queen. Her scales had settled into a resolute pattern of deep purple and silver. Royal colors. Battle colors I somehow knew. If I leave now, I asked her, what happens to Earth when these things arrive there? The same that has happened to 17 civilizations before. Consumption. Extinction. Your technology cannot fight what exists beyond dimensional boundaries. And if I stay? If we complete this ceremony? Then perhaps both our peoples have a chance. The joining creates something new, a hybrid consciousness the Void Eaters cannot easily consume. A weapon against the between spaces. Another tremor rocked the platform, larger than before. Cracks appeared in the crystalline structures around us. In the distance, one of the floating city's spires collapsed into the purple ocean. Captain Rivera grabbed my arm. Chin, I don't know what this alien has told you, but we need to go. Now. I looked at her, this woman who had been my commanding officer for 3 years, who had trusted me enough to make me part of the first contact team. I owed her the truth. Captain, Earth is already doomed. Unless we try something that's never been done before. I gestured to the ritual pool. This isn't just some alien marriage. It's a last-ditch effort to create a hybrid species that can fight these things. Rivera's expression hardened. That's not your call to make, Lieutenant. Actually it is, came a new voice over our comms. A voice I recognized immediately. Admiral Cho. Rivera asked, stunned. Stand down, Captain, the Admiral ordered. Let Lieutenant Chen proceed. Rivera's face registered shock, then betrayal. Sir, you knew about this? Not all of it, the Admiral admitted. But enough. We've been tracking these dimensional intrusions for decades. We knew something was coming. We just didn't know what. Another piece clicked into place. The marker, I said quietly. Earth has been working with the Zalthori all along, hasn't it? The silence on the comm was answer enough. The Queen approached, her movements now urgent as the sky continued to tear open above us. Your leaders agreed to the genetic program generations ago, after our scouts discovered the first Void Eater incursion. But they kept the knowledge from your general population to prevent panic. I felt sick. Used. A pawn in some interspecies experiment that had been going on since before I was born. But there was no time for anger. The darkness above was spreading, tendrils of nothingness reaching down toward the city. Where they touched, matter simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, erased as if it had never been. Alex, the Queen said, my name sounding strange in her alien voice. I did not choose you. The waters did. The science did. But now I am asking you, choose me. Choose life for both our peoples. Captain Rivera's hand tightened on her weapon. Chin, think about what you're doing. The extraction team looked nervously at the growing rift. One of them whispered, what the hell is that thing? I took a deep breath. Captain, get your team to safety. I need to do this. Chen, that's an order from Starfleet Command, Captain, Admiral Cho interrupted. Evacuate your team immediately. With visible reluctance, Rivera backed away. This isn't over, Admiral, she promised. Then to me, don't you dare die, Lieutenant. As the extraction team retreated to the shuttle, the Queen extended her hand again. Above us, the rift widened further, the void reaching hungry fingers toward the ritual pool that I took her hand. Her scales were cool against my skin, vibrating slightly with what might have been fear or anticipation. Together, we stepped toward the pool of swirling energy. The Zalthori attendants resumed their chanting, more urgent now, the sound battling against the strange silence emanating from the rift above. What happens now? I asked. Now, she said, we evolve. Together. We stepped into the pool simultaneously. The liquid, if it was liquid, enveloped us, crawling up our bodies like it had a mind of its own. I felt it seeping into my pores, flowing through my veins, rewriting something fundamental in my cells. The pain was excruciating. I would have screamed if I could have drawn breath. Beside me, The queen too seemed locked in agony, her scales flickering through colors I'd never seen before. Through the haze of pain, I became aware of something new, a presence in my mind. Not just the impression of the queen's thoughts as before, but her actual consciousness, merging with mine. Her memories became accessible to me, millennia of Zalthori history, the discovery of the Void Eaters, the desperate search across the stars for compatible species. And I knew she was experiencing the same, seeing through my eyes the brief, bright flare of human history. Our art, our music, our stubborn resilience in the face of adversity. Above us, the void reacted to our joining. The tendrils of nothingness withdrew slightly, as if tasting something unexpected and unpleasant. The pool began to glow brighter, the energy within it responding to our merged consciousness. The light spread outward, racing through the crystalline city, then across the purple ocean, then upward toward the rift. Where light met void, there was resistance. For the first time, the darkness seemed unable to simply erase what it touched. "It's working," the queen's voice said in my mind, no longer needing translation. But then the void fought back. The rift widened explosively, and a sound that wasn't a sound tore through reality, the hungry wail of something ink. Unseevable, discovering that its meal might fight back. The shuttle hovered nearby, Captain Rivera's face visible through the viewport, her expression a mix of horror and wonder. What happened next would change the course of human and Zalthori history forever. And it wasn't at all what any of us, human, alien, or void, had expected. The void shrieked, a sound that existed not in air but in the mind, tearing through my consciousness like jagged glass. The queen's presence in my thoughts steadied me, our merged awareness becoming a shield against the psychic assault. "Hold on," she urged, her thoughts intertwining with mine. "The transformation is not complete." The pool's energy surged through us, rebuilding our bodies cell by cell. I felt my DNA unraveling and reweaving, incorporating Zalthori genetic patterns while maintaining human structure. It wasn't replacement, it was evolution, just as she'd said. Becoming something new while remaining myself. Through our shared consciousness, I felt the queen undergoing a similar metamorphosis. Her exoskeleton softened in places, her neural pathways reorganizing to accommodate human thought patterns. We were becoming mirrors of each other, neither fully human nor fully Zalthori. Above us, the void entity attacked with renewed fury. The rift expanded, consuming portions of the floating city. Zalthori's citizens fled in panic as entire sections of crystal architecture simply ceased to exist. "We need more time," the queen communicated. "The joining is not yet stable." But time was the one thing we didn't have. The void was adapting to our resistance, probing for weaknesses in the energy field generated by our transformation. In desperation, I reached deeper into our connection, searching the queen's ancestral memories for anything that might help. Millennia of knowledge flowed through me, the rise and fall of Zalthori dynasties, the discovery of the void entities, the desperate search across galaxies for compatible species, and then I found it. Not in the queen's memories, but in the ancient technology powering the ritual pool itself. The original purpose of the genetic joining wasn't just to create beings the void couldn't consume, it was to create beings who could actively fight back. The pool, I communicated to the queen. It's not just a catalyst, it's a weapon. Understanding flowed between us. Together, we focused our merged consciousness on the energy surrounding us, willing it to respond to our combined intent. The liquid rose around us, forming a spiraling column that shot upward toward the rift. Where it touched the void, light and darkness battled, neither able to erase the other. Captain Rivera's voice crackled through my comm unit, which somehow still functioned despite the transformation. "Chin, the shuttle sensors are going crazy. Whatever you're doing, it's affecting subspace across the entire system." I couldn't respond verbally, my body still locked in transformation. But somehow, Rivera seemed to understand. "All Earth vessels, maintain position," she ordered. "Do not interfere." The queen's consciousness brushed against mine. "Your captain is wise." "She's more than that," I responded mentally. "She's a survivor." Together, we pushed harder, directing the energy column deeper into the rift. The void entity recoiled, but didn't retreat. Instead, it seemed to gather itself, condensing into a more defined shape, something with purpose and malevolence. It's becoming conscious of us specifically, the Queen realized. It recognizes the threat. The entity struck back with terrifying precision. A tendril of void energy pierced our protective column, reaching for the ritual pool itself. If it touched the source of our transformation, everything would be lost. In that moment of crisis, I felt something extraordinary, not just the Queen's consciousness merged with mine, but thousands of others joining us. The Zalthori population, linking their minds to ours through some collective ability I hadn't known they possessed. My people offer their strength, the Queen explained. It is our last defense. The collective consciousness of an entire species flowed through us into the energy column. The void tendril halted mere meters from the ritual pool, held back by this united psychic force. But it wasn't enough. The void entity was still too powerful, too alien to our understanding. It pushed against our resistance, slowly, inexorably advancing. We cannot hold it, the Queen admitted, fear coloring her thoughts. That's when I remembered something else, something buried in my own genetic memory, activated by the transformation. The reason my grandfather had been selected for the genetic program. The secret Earth had been keeping even from its allies. Humans weren't just compatible with Zalthori genetics. We carried something unique, something the Void Eaters feared. We're not just meant to resist them, I realized. We're meant to consume them. The Queen's confusion washed over me. Consume? How? Instead of answering, I showed her. Reaching through our merged consciousness, I opened a part of myself that had been locked away. The true purpose of the human genetic marker. It wasn't defensive. It was offensive. I extended my transformed awareness toward the void entity, not just resisting its intrusion but reaching into its non-existence. Where the Void Eaters consumed reality, this human genetic quirk allowed us to do something unprecedented, to consume the void itself. I felt the entity's surprise, then its fear. It tried to withdraw, but too late. The connection was established, and I began to feed. The sensation was indescribable, absorbing nothingness into myself, converting absence into presence. The void entity shrieked across dimensions as I drew it in, not destroying it but transforming it, just as the ritual pool had transformed me. What are you doing? The Queen asked, astonished. What humans have always done, I answered. Adapting our predators into our strength. The rift began to shrink as I consumed more of the void entity. The Zalthori collective consciousness watched in awe through our connection, witnessing something their millennia of advancement had never conceived. Captain Rivera's voice came through again, filled with wonder. Chin, the anomaly is collapsing. Whatever you're doing, it's working. With one final, reality-tearing shriek, the void entity collapsed inward. The rift sealed itself, leaving only normal sky above the damaged floating city. The immediate threat was gone, but I could feel the entity inside me now, contained but not destroyed. Transformed into something my hybrid physiology could use. The ritual pool's energy finally subsided. The Queen and I emerged, forever changed. Our bodies looked mostly the same, me still recognizably human, her still recognizably Zalthori, but we both knew the changes went far deeper. The Zalthori citizens approached cautiously, their scales displaying colors of awe and reverence. Captain Rivera landed the shuttle nearby, emerging with a medical team that approached me with equal caution. Lieutenant? She asked uncertainly. Still me, Captain, I assured her, my voice low. But recognizable. Mostly. The Queen stood beside me, her 6 eyes surveying the damage to her city. The threat is contained, but not eliminated, she announced to her people. This was merely a scout. A scout? Rivera asked sharply. You mean there are more of these things? The Queen's scales shifted to somber blues. Many more. This was only the first to find us. I felt the contained void energy stirring within me, responding to the mention of its kind. Through our mental link, I sensed the Queen's concern. So what now? Rivera asked, looking between us. Do we evacuate? Prepare defenses? I exchanged a glance with the Queen. Captain, I think we need to contact Earth. All Earth's allies too. because what we need to do next isn't going to be easy to explain. And what exactly is that, Lieutenant? I took a deep breath. We need to create more like us. Hybrids who can fight the void. An army of evolutionary bridges. The Queen's scales shifted to royal purple. The genetic program must be expanded. Immediately. Rivera looked skeptical. You expect Earth to just start genetically modifying people en masse? After keeping this secret for generations? No, I said. I expect them to tell the truth. Finally. And let people choose. The Queen's consciousness brushed against mine. There is something else you should tell them. I nodded, feeling the weight of the revelation. Captain, the void entity I absorbed, it had knowledge. Memories, if you can call them that. This wasn't a random attack. What do you mean? Earth wasn't discovered by accident. Neither was the Zalthori civilization. We were targeted specifically. Why? Rivera asked, and I looked up at the sky where the rift had been. Because somewhere out there, beyond the void, is something else. Something that's been guiding our evolution for millions of years. Preparing us. The Queen's scales shimmered with confirmation. The architects, we thought they were merely legends. Well, they're not, I said. And according to what I absorbed from the void entity, they've been playing an extremely long game with both our species. For what purpose? Rivera demanded. I turned to fully face my captain, aware that my eyes now glowed faintly with residual energy from the transformation. That's the part you're really not going to like. The Queen stepped forward, her transformed body moving with new grace. The architects do not seek to save us from the Void Eaters. No, I confirmed. They're using the Void Eaters to force our evolution, to create beings like us. I gestured between the Queen and myself. Hybrids that can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Why would they want that? Rivera asked. The answer came to me through the absorbed knowledge, terrible in its implications. Because they're at war. A war that makes our conflict with the void look like a playground scuffle. And they've been breeding soldiers across thousands of galaxies. The Queen's scales darkened. We are not the first? No, I said softly. We're just the latest batch. Rivera's face hardened. So after fighting off one set of cosmic horrors, you're telling me we're just cannon fodder for fighting another? I felt the void energy shifting within me, adapting to my hybrid physiology, becoming something new, something neither the architects nor the void eaters had anticipated. That was their plan, I said, a smile slowly spreading across my face. But I think we might have just changed the game. The Queen caught my thought through our link, her scales shifting to brilliant gold as she understood. What do you mean? Rivera asked. I mean, Captain, that humans have a long history of refusing to be pawns. And now we have the Void Eater's power and the Zalthori's technology. I looked at the Queen, feeling our shared resolve. I think it's time we introduced ourselves to these architects. In the purple sky above us, the twin suns of the Zalthori world shone down on something unprecedented, the beginning of a hybrid civilization that would soon forge its own path through the cosmos. Not as victims. Not as soldiers. But as something entirely new. 6 months have passed since that day on the Zalthori homeworld. 6 months of diplomatic nightmares, scientific breakthroughs, and personal adjustments that would have seemed impossible before. Did I stand at the viewport of the newly commissioned Alliance vessel Convergence, watching Earth grow smaller as we prepare for the first official joint mission between our species. My reflection in the glass still startles me sometimes, still recognizably Alex Chin, but with faint iridescent patterns visible beneath my skin when the light hits just right. My eyes now shift colors slightly with my emotions, a trait I picked up from my Zalthori half. Admiring the view. Queen Zaravesh, now simply Zara to me, approaches, her movements more fluid than before our transformation. The ceremonial armor she once wore has been replaced by a hybrid uniform designed to accommodate both her exoskeleton and the more human-like features she's developed. Just saying goodbye, I answer. Who knows when we'll be back? She stands beside me, her scales shifting to a thoughtful blue. Your world handled the truth better than mine did. She's not wrong. When the full story came out, the generations-long genetic program, the Void Eaters, the manipulative architects, Earth's population had responded with typical human adaptability. Panic gave way to resolve. After the initial shock wore off, volunteers for the hybrid program started coming forward. The Zalthori, with their rigid social hierarchy and ancestral traditions, had struggled more with the revelations. The idea that their evolution had been guided by external forces shook their religious foundations. Some still refused to believe it, despite the evidence. Humans are good at rolling with the punches, I tell her. It's our specialty. Captain Rivera enters the bridge, nodding to us both. Our relationship has changed. I'm no longer under her command, technically. The hybrid program operates independently from both Earth's military and the Zalthori Royal Institute. But old habits die hard. We're cleared for departure, she announces. The rest of the fleet will rendezvous with us at the edge of the system. The fleet is a grand term for what we have: 3 Earth vessels and 4 Zalthori ships, carrying the first 200 successful hybrids. A small force, but better than nothing. Any word from Admiral Cho? I ask. Rivera's expression tightens. Still stuck in congressional hearings. Turns out keeping planet-wide secrets has consequences. I nod, feeling sympathy for the Admiral despite everything. He'd only been following orders that predated his birth. The true architects of the genetic program, both human and Zalthori, were long dead, having passed their secrets down through generations of leadership. What about Dr. Patel's research? Zara asks. Has she made progress with the void energy samples? Some, Rivera answers. She says she's close to understanding how you're able to contain it without being consumed. She gives me a pointed look, which would be useful information, considering you're still carrying that thing inside you. I shrug. It's stable. And it's been useful. That's an understatement. The absorbed void entity has become something like a symbiote, providing insights into dimensional physics that have advanced both human and Zalthori science by centuries. The knowledge extracted from it confirmed everything about the architects and their cosmic war, and helped us devise ways to potentially shield ourselves from both sides of that conflict. Zara's consciousness brushes against mine through our permanent mental link. You're thinking about the dreams again. I nod. Since absorbing the void entity, I've experienced vivid dreams of distant galaxies, vast intelligences moving between dimensions, and cosmic battlefields beyond comprehension. Whether they're memories from the void entity or glimpses of what's to come, I can't be sure. The architects won't expect resistance, I say quietly. Not from their breeding stock. That's our advantage, Zara agrees. They created us to fight their enemies, not them. Rivera checks the final preparations on her tablet. The real question is whether we can convince the other species they've manipulated. We know the architects have been running this program across multiple galaxies. If they're anything like us, they won't appreciate being pawns, I say. The ship's engines hum to life as we prepare to enter FTL. The new hybrid drive technology, a combination of human ingenuity and Zalthori precision, allows us to travel faster and farther than either species could alone. Another unexpected benefit of our joining. As Earth vanishes from view, I think about everything that led me to this moment. A simple diplomatic mission. A ritual bath. A genetic marker I never knew I carried. And now, somehow, I've become the bridge between 2 civilizations and the potential key to liberating countless others. Having second thoughts? Zara asks, sensing my reflective mood. No, I answer truthfully. Just appreciating the irony. I spent my whole career trying to understand alien cultures, and now I'm half alien myself. And I spent centuries believing my people were the pinnacle of evolution, she replies, only to discover we were being guided like livestock. Rivera joins us at the viewport. For what it's worth, I think you two make a pretty good team. Human adaptability, Zalthori precision. Plus void energy, I add with a small smile. Don't forget my third wheel. The stars stretch into lines as we enter FTL, the familiar sensation now tinged with the strange awareness my hybrid physiology gives me of the dimensional boundaries we're skirting. So, Rivera asks. Where exactly are we heading first? Zara and I exchange a glance. Through our link, I feel her determination mirroring my own. According to the Void entity's memories, there's a world in the Cygnus Arm harboring another hybrid species, I explain. One that's much further along in their development than we are. Potential allies? Rivera asks. Or rivals, Zara cautions. We won't know until we meet them. I look out at the streaming stars, feeling the void energy humming within me, ready to defend us if needed. The path ahead is uncertain, filled with dangers I can barely comprehend. But for the first time since this journey began, I'm not just reacting to events beyond my control, that we have a plan. We have a purpose. And maybe, just maybe, we have a chance to rewrite the ending the architects had planned for us all. Lieutenant Chin, Rivera asks with a hint of her old formality, any final thoughts before we commit to this mission? I think about the ritual bath that started it all. How something meant to bind me to the Queens will instead created a partnership neither of us expected. How what seemed like fate was actually choice, hidden beneath layers of manipulation and prophecy. Just one, I reply, as the convergence carries us toward an uncertain future. When someone tells you your fate is sealed, that's usually when you have the best chance to break the seal.